Okay. Yes. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start the music. Start the meeting today with some music. And the person who's going to provide this music is Max McNutt, who is in the CU School of Music. He has a number. There we go. There's our slide. Max has won a number of awards. And in the words of his mentor, Ryan, I got to see the words. He's had an outstanding year in competitions. So Max is going to play us a patriotic song to start this Memorial Day weekend. Max, you're up. Unmute yourself. There we go. Thank you very much, Max. And Max is the first person to join us all the way from Ohio in a Boulder Rotary Club Zoom meeting. So thank you again, and we'll have a little more from Max to close the meeting. Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right. It's good to have you fine people join us for this opening celebration to Memorial Day weekend, which for the first time in ever, I believe, won't have a boulder. My parking lot is not barricaded off to prevent the runners from parking on Monday. And so we're going to have to find a little something else to do. Now, the way today's meeting's going to go, we have Avani Dilger, who is going to speak to us about the Natural Highs program, and she will speak to us and take questions until approximately 12:55, and then we're going to have an announcement video, and then we will close with a we're going to do the poll. We're going to do the poll that we couldn't do last week. So so we'll have a little Q&A with that, and then we'll close the meeting. So I'm going to turn it over now to Gary Kahn, who's going to introduce us to our speaker and program leader today, Avani Dilger. Gary.
It'll help if I unmute. Thank you, John. Yeah, it's my pleasure today to bring to the club Avani Dilger, who's a therapist and founder and director of the Natural Highs, as well as 3 and maybe 4 members of her team of incredible peer mentors who will introduce themselves as Avani introduces them. Now, our Behavioral Wellness Committee was introduced to Natural Highs by our committee champion for the project, Norma Portnoy. And when she and Hans heard Avani speak to the Parent Effectiveness Network, who endorses the program, along with the Boulder Valley School District, Mental Health Partners, and the Boulder County Health Department. And in fact, the city of Boulder actually has been providing funding for Natural Highs, but just for the academic calendar year. And now that funding could be in jeopardy because of the loss of tax revenues from the city's COVID-19 experience. And interestingly, this is going to be the first year that there's a summer virtual program for Natural Highs, because these teens are going to be socially disconnected from their schools, their counselors, their peer supports, and this may continue beyond the summer even. So our committee, the Behavioral Wellness Committee, when we heard from Avani on a couple of occasions, determined that we would try to find support for the program, and especially the summer program, but beyond as well. And we now have a proposal into the board to do this. And after hearing about the success of the program, one of our members, Cindy Collins Arsenault, was so moved that she decided to offer a matching grant of up to $5,000 to help support the program. And Norma's boyfriend has also offered to kick in an additional $1,000. So I just want to remind you that you can use the chat for Q&A, to post your questions for the Q&A section. And also that if you're not already doing it, you may want to select the speaker view in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen to get the best presentation for the Q&A especially. So I would like us all to just give a warm Rotary welcome to Avani and her peer mentors, who will tell us about this incredible program. Avani? Can you unmute yourself and
Yes, so thank you so much for having us today as guests. We feel so honored because we have been working in this community for 16 years, and we see ourselves as a community nonprofit and a movement that we want everybody to know about and everybody to participate in however way you would like to. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for us to tell you about Natural Highs if you haven't heard about us. And so I would like to pass it on to Dee, who will give you a little bit of an introduction of who she is and what she is doing in Natural Highs.
Hi, I'm Dee. So I have been with Natural Highs for about 3 years now. I just graduated Uni Vista High School. It's my senior year. Oh, there I am. Okay, so yeah, I've been a peer mentor with Natural Highs for forever. What being a peer mentor is just basically taking on a leadership role, helping with brain chemistry, presenting, planning events, facilitating, all that good stuff. And it also is a commitment to being 100% sober. So I have been in that role for around 3 years now, since October 2017. So yeah, I've always been a peer mentor with Natural Highs. Basically, the second I met Natural Highs, I was super enamored with it. I had transferred to Uni Vista my sophomore year after Broomfield High didn't quite work out for me. Just was kind of going down a wrong path with some friends that made some questionable choices, and I was making questionable choices with them regarding drugs, but also regarding a lot of things that weren't good for me. So when I found Natural Highs, it was really a welcoming, loving, supportive community that took on a unique approach, just super non-judgmental and just wanting to support everyone. And I also learned about herbalism and brain chemistry, which made the adjustment to wanting to take better care of myself so much easier and so much more fun, is a really good way to put it. And so yeah, I just immediately fell in love with the program, immediately became a peer mentor, and just really wanted to help people over how much I wanted to destroy myself, if that made sense. So it's just been a really amazing leadership role for me, and I've been super into the program for forever. And yeah, the main thing that I do is, well, as I was saying, I help plan events and also help make sure that they're going well. I like facilitate classes in general. Sometimes I'll teach brain chemistry because I have basically all the classes memorized and I teach them on my own time in a different program. Yeah, it's just a really great nonprofit, and I'm super lucky and grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Dee, for sharing that. And I also want to add that, Dee has been a rock star peer mentor for Natural Highs and has been hired by Boulder County to be a leader, to function in a leadership role, and has also been hired by another substance abuse program to actually teach Natural Highs in their program. So I just want to say that you are a super rock star peer mentor, and I'm so glad you could be here today and talk about that.
Thank you, Avani. So sweet.
Yeah. So I want to welcome the next peer mentor, who is Holly, who also can share about what she does with Natural Highs.
Hi, my name is Holly. I know it says Suzanne on there, but that's my mom's name, so sorry about that. I found out about Natural Highs because of my diversion officer, and it was originally a court-mandated requirement. And at first, I was really hesitant to join the program because I didn't know what it was going to be like. But after the first day, I couldn't believe that I had gone my entire life without it. I was immediately put into a leadership position, like on my first day being there. As a peer mentor, Dee mentioned that you have to vow to be sober. So from that day on, I've been sober ever since. And taking on that kind of position gave me so much confidence in myself and the path that I want to take in my life. I was in an extremely dark place coming into that program. Like, I was really suffering from my addiction and other mental illness disorders. And I just really didn't see any hope. Like, everything was kind of looking down. I didn't really have any direction in life, and everything was just really unfulfilling. But as soon as I was in that support system and place like Natural Highs, I just started to like regain my confidence in myself and figure out like what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And I can honestly say that that program has given me my life back. I've completely found myself through Natural Highs, and it just has given me so much clarity for who I want to be and what I want to do. Like this semester, I took a year off school because I really wanted to get my life back on track. And coming back into school, I decided to switch my major into psychology because I know that in my future, I want to be doing something like Avani and Natural Highs does for other people. And, you know, every day is still a challenge, but having a support system like Natural Highs just makes it that much easier to like go day by day. And I can proudly say that tomorrow I'm 9 months sober, thanks to the Natural Highs. I seriously never would have in a million years thought that I could have achieved that. And it blows my mind even just thinking about. So yeah, and like Dee was saying, we've been taught about like neuroscience and just been given like so much education around why we do the things that we do, and knowing that we're not flawed and that we're still human beings and that we make mistakes, but that isn't the end all. And yeah, I've had amazing opportunities to go into middle schools and teach them about prevention before they become exposed to substance abuse, and also like be there for adults and show them that no one's beyond repair. And it's been beautiful for me to be a part of. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
So I want to just add that Holly has been absolutely amazing on the team. So we believe in Natural Highs that, you know, everybody is an expert in wherever place they are, and there's a place for teaching something about that life experience. And Holly, you have been doing this in such an amazing way from the start, coming from such a difficult situation and turning that around so fast. And I'm teaching right now a class, a Natural Highs class for the Boulder Probation Department, where we work with women who have really come through the most horrendous trauma and involvement in the justice system. And Holly is with me on the team teaching Natural Highs and alternatives to people from really hard backgrounds. So I just want to thank you, Holly, for being such a rock star peer mentor.
Oh, thank you, Avani.
Yeah. So I want to welcome Kara, who is also on the Natural Highs team and has also a beautiful, unique story and a unique vision that I would love for her to tell you about.
Hi everyone, my name is Kara, and I'm from Northern Canada in a community called Iqaluit Nunavut, which is on Baffin Island in the Arctic. And I moved there when I was about 11 years old. It is a place that experiences a lot of federal neglect, so our housing prices and food prices are much higher, so we have very high poverty levels, and because of that, there's a lot of addiction and mental health issues, and I started to get into drugs at a really young age, and I just graduated Naropa University this May, and I found Natural Highs last semester, so in the fall, and was with their adult program for one semester, which was the first step for me to really take the leap into being sober, something that I had been wanting to do for a really long time, but I had just never really had the support. And after being in the Natural Highs adult course, I then asked Avani to be an internship student with Natural Highs. So I was able to work as a practicum student for the last semester, and I've actually created a curriculum that is based somewhat off of the curriculum that Avani has developed to bring to Iqaluit Nunavut and work with youth at risk in my home. And I'm going to be integrating rock climbing with all of the different kind of brain chemistry education that we learn, as well as different self-care techniques and whatnot. So I've been really grateful to find Natural Highs. I think that a really big component of what makes us different and accessible for youth is the shame-free component and the open sharing, but also the intergenerational component of youth and young adults and elders being in the same space and sharing experiences. And I think that's such a natural part of our human experience, but it's missing in a lot of communities today. So thank you so much for being here, inviting us today. It's so great to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Kara, for being here. And this is very exciting to us that we're gonna have a pilot site all the way up in the Arctic, because for those of you who know what's going on there, it's a really challenging environment for kids to grow up in. And so for you to bring Natural Highs there is just one of the most beautiful things. So thank you for that. So I would like to tell you a little bit about how we started this program and how we started this movement, so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing. So I grew up in Germany, in Bavaria, and when I was a young person, 2 of my friends died in connection with their drug use. And for me, as a young person, that was a very, very difficult experience, because I felt that we were not supported by adults at all. We had no resources, and that was still a time with a lot of stigma around addiction and mental health issues. And so, my friends were considered addicts and junkies, and there was really no support for us to understand what was going on. And so I was left kind of really upset. And at that moment, I committed that I would figure this out, that I would spend the rest of my life figuring out, like, how can we solve this? How can we understand what are these forces of addiction, and why do they make people become so destructive, sometimes that it costs people's lives? And so I started studying, whatever I could. This quest also then brought me to the US, because I received a grant from the German government to study with pioneers in somatic psychology who are here in Boulder. And so I was lucky to study with Christine Caldwell and with Susan Aposhin. And so I learned about neuroscience approaches to addiction, about somatic psychology, so a much more science-based way of understanding what's actually going on. I then very quickly became involved in traditional treatment settings. So I worked here in Boulder County Jail. I worked here for Boulder County Public Health. And I saw that oftentimes the traditional approaches are not producing very good outcomes. So I worked with a lot of people on the very extreme end of the spectrum, and could just see that we were not helping people get better. And in my total despair about that, I started interviewing people. I started asking people, so what are the elements that would actually make, help you get motivated to even consider choosing a healthy lifestyle, a clean and sober lifestyle? And the pieces that we learned were very unusual, actually. So, for example, we learned that the most motivating and empowering piece for people to actually motivate them towards staying clean and sober is learning about the neuroscience of what substances actually do in the brain. Now, that is not usually the biggest part in drug treatment centers. And so, but it's the biggest part in natural highs. So we teach a lot of very advanced brain chemistry, because we learned that when people learn about what's actually going on, that they want to make better choices. And we also learned that people need to be respected in their autonomy. So people need to learn that they actually need to decide for themselves, and that in that space of non-judgment and non-pressure, people end up making better choices for you. So I know that Dee and Holly and Kara talked a little bit about elements of the program. So I want to give you a little overview over the different pieces that we do. So I want to share my screen with you so that you can have a little view into our program. So let me just pull this up here, make sure I can show you some of our, okay. All right. So these are just a few pictures of the different things we do. Let me just see if I can make this big screen. Okay, so so welcome to Natural Highs. So this is a view into one of our classes. So our classes look a little bit different. We meet in circles, and we work with a ritual that comes from South America called sharing yerba mate. It is a social ritual. When people get together, they share a tea that is actually highly nutritious, and it comes with the social ritual. You see the circle of gourds. It's a very similar social ritual what people do here with sometimes with more unhealthy substances like alcohol or marijuana. And we learned that it's very hard for humans to give up social rituals, that it's much easier to stay clean and sober if you have other options of connecting. And so we use this beautiful ritual from South America for that purpose. And so you see it here in the middle. So this is a circle of gourds. And so our classes look different from a normal drug program. They're very celebratory. They're fun, and we do fun things. And so because of that, they're very popular. We also always teach classes as a team. So we invite everybody to be part of a team and become part of teaching. And we invite young people to bring in their favorite topics. So you see here on this picture is actually Callie, who brought the whole love languages piece into our curriculum. Here you see Erica teaching neuroscience. This is another example of a class that was actually taught at a music festival, where Rebecca, who you see here in the picture, she taught classes and was one of the youngest facilitators in that festival ever in the history of that festival, teaching at age 19. So we work in high schools, we work in middle schools, we also offer a free after-school program. We try to reduce all the barriers, so most of our programs are free, so that there's no obstacle for people to participate. Again, right, everybody is encouraged to be a leader, everybody is encouraged to step up. We do a lot of different body-mind practices, because we want people, when they come to class with us, we want them to leave tangibly feeling better. So we teach a lot of stress management skills. mindfulness practices, healthy ways of connecting. So we look at every substance that people abuse, and we look at what is the intelligence, what is the desire underneath that people are actually trying to get to, and we teach those direct practices. So we work with art, of course. This is a piece of artwork one of our students did. We also do a lot of work in the community. So we get invited often to community festivals. This is at the Pride Fest. We give out free yerba mate. We teach people about healthy alternatives to drugs and alcohol. And our peer mentors are critical. They're the leaders in bringing that information to people. So teens are on our team and deciding what we actually do. And because of that, our program is very popular because teens decide what we want to offer. And so we offer really beautiful events, sober events like open mics, music events. We do sober raves, sober dance parties, because we want to show that it doesn't mean if you stay clean and sober, you can have even more fun and you can learn it to do it in healthy ways. So we actually have a lot of experience doing our work outside, which is really a benefit, of course, for this summer, because we don't know with COVID-19 what's going to happen. But we are very, very, flexible, and we have brought our work outside into circles. So we are happy to, stay flexible and see if we can bring our work gently and carefully outside. So this is a workshop we did in a festival outside. Okay. So, just wanted to give you a little bit of an inside view, and then I want to show you a little bit more voices of teens who couldn't be here today. So we have a very, very short video that gives you a little bit of an inside view of how we work. Just make sure that I'm sharing here my screen with you.
The Natural Highs program is a community built off the youth leaders and the youth who participate in it. Brain chemistry is sort of the foundation of Natural Highs. We talk about feelings, natural highs, and habits and rituals.
So we hear a lot from kids who participate in our programs that they have never received any of this information, not in schools, not in any other program. And certainly not in drug prevention programs. And so we'd like to bring the information that we think would make a difference to people at the age where they need it the most.
I think a lot of people would quit drugs if they knew what Natural Highs taught. I think a big part of that is that Natural Highs teaches you how to feel good on your own without the use of substance, and I feel that once people know that, they make the switch.
So let me just come back. Okay, so I would like to tell you a little bit about COVID-19 because really the focus of this meeting today was really to show you all what we're doing during COVID-19 and how you can all participate in that, or how you can all think of people in your lives who might need support right now. So, when COVID-19 hit, for us working with people who are vulnerable with mental health issues and with substance abuse issues, we were very clear from the start that this would be a very difficult time. If you add another factor for people who are already challenged, it can make people's life very, very hard. And so very quickly we decided to do anything in our capacity to provide resources for people who are impacted and are struggling. So I want to show you, and I just saw somebody in the chat, right? Where's the intergenerational aspect? So you could see that we do a lot of our work for teens, but we also know that one of the pieces that are missing in our world right now is really the intergenerational aspect, right? We've heard from teens that they are actually missing conversation, meaningful conversation with adults. And so we want to provide opportunities for that. So for our programming, we put all of our programs online. And I want to do a tour of our website with you now so that you see the range of resources we offer during COVID-19, because they're both resources for teens and adults and for parents. And when I show you all of the resources, they are all available to anybody in this community. So whether you are a person struggling with mental health issues or substance use or not, or whether you are a loved one, it doesn't matter. You get to access these resources. So all of these resources are designed to improve resilience. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that looks like. I'm going to do a tour of our website so that you can see how you can access it. Okay, so let me just pull this up here for you. Okay, let me share my screen with you. Okay, so this is our website. So it's naturalhighs.org with an S. And when you land on our website, this is how it looks like. So this is our homepage where you will see current events. So this is actually a special invitation I want to invite all of you to. So we were part of a very acclaimed European documentary that opened in German movie theaters this spring, and that also was just shown on German and on French television just this month. It is a documentary on alcohol and how the alcohol industry is really kind of abusing human vulnerabilities for profit. It is a very important documentary because the filmmaker in Germany is very famous. He's using controversial issues and topics, and then he's really presenting them in a very non-judgmental way to really invite dialogue. And so in that way, this film was very important. So they filmed around the world, and they were also looking for approaches for healthy alternatives. And they came all the way to the US, to Boulder, to film Natural Highs. So we are part of this documentary, and we are very proud of that. And so we just did the US premiere showing of the film just last week. And it was so overfull, like the Zoom situation closed down, people couldn't get in. So we will host a second showing, and you all are welcome to be part of it. It will be virtual on Zoom, and it will have a discussion afterwards. It's going to be on Thursday, June 4th. And Harvey Milkman, who is very famous and is the initiator of the Iceland model, which has been an incredibly successful approach in reducing drinking, substance abuse in teens from 42% to under 5% countrywide within the span of 10 years, which is now replicated in over 20 countries. So he will be part of that conversation because he's also part of the film, and he's a very close mentor of us. So please take this as my personal invitation. You can participate in that. You can invite loved ones, or you can send the invitation to people who you think might benefit from that. So then when you scroll down on our website, you can see here that the resources are offered for teens, for parents, and for adults. So when you click into let's do the adult section, because we saw so much now on teens, so let's go into the adult section. When you go into the adult section of the website, if you click on the link, you can see here where it says Natural Highs Online Academy. So everybody can be part of the Natural Highs Online Academy. And what it is that you get every morning in your inbox, you get a free resilience and emotional care packet. So it contains inspirational material like a video or a practice or a worksheet. So the idea is really to have a resource, to have a positive focus during COVID-19 to strengthen people's mental health and people's resilience. So they're both appropriate for kids, for teens, and for adults. So really anybody can sign up with their email. So if you have a loved one right now where you feel like, you know, they could use some inspiration, like maybe somebody who's in a nursing home who cannot have visits, and you think they would benefit from every morning having this beautiful little care packet, please sign them up with their email, and then they can receive that. So that's one part of our current COVID program. And then we also offer all of the resources in our program for free right now. So when people cannot come to classes right now, we have all of our classes on video that people can look at now and can download. We also have a lot of our practices that we do in Natural Highs, typically in a classroom. We recorded a bunch of those practices and people can download them for free on our website. So these are practices that help with stress, with anxiety, with anger, with trauma. So people can get them for free, including every one of you. And then there is podcasts, there's a TV show, there's lots of information. There is book lists and TED Talks. So you can see we wanted to create a hub for people to get lots and lots of inspiration and resources. We have the same for parents. You can see that on the homepage, a hub for parents, and we also have a hub for teens. So just because of time, I'm gonna want to get back to you right now. But this is the plan for the summer. The plan for the summer is we want to keep going with our full support programming right now for COVID. So all of the online supports, and then in addition, we do almost daily Zoom meetings for teens, and we also want to add intergenerational ones. So one of the ones that we want to invite all of you to is we do philosophy circles. And we have done over the years intergenerational philosophy circles. So that's one that I want to invite you all to participate in, because it's very amazing for people to have dialogue between young people and adults. So I want to pause here because I want to have time for conversation. So feel free to bring your questions.
Thank you, Avani. That's wonderful. And we do have a lot of questions. Let me start with Peter Ewing. Peter?
Yes, Avani, thank you for this presentation. Your last portion of it actually dealt with a lot of what my question was pointed at, because originally you were talking about, and it appeared solely teens and especially young women. But the question was, is this program equally effective and useful for adults as well as long-term addiction, alcohol, drugs, etc.? I mean, 20, 30 year kind of history.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that, with those, that group?
Yeah, so that is actually my background, right? So when I worked here for Boulder County Public Health, and when I worked here in the Boulder County Jail, we worked with people on the most extreme end of the spectrum, right? So all of Natural Highs was born out of experience with people on the really most extreme end of the spectrum with mental health issues and addiction issues. And the class that Holly and I are teaching right now for women on probation, we have people in the class who are in their 50s who have been dealing for decades of utter destruction with substance abuse and mental health issues, right? So We teach it exactly the same way. We teach it foundational on neuroscience and on coping skills, on what can I learn about my own brain to help myself find healthy alternatives. Instead of using drugs to cope, how can I cope in a healthy way? So yes, our program has been very successful with people who are on the more extreme end of the spectrum. We are also working with treatment centers. So for example, we work with a treatment center in Estes Park called Fire Mountain, who works with young people on the very severe end of the spectrum who are residential, right? Who stay there for about 6 to 9 months in residential treatment for very severe issues. And we teach natural highs there. So the reason we do more for teens is just time, right? We are so busy because there's so much need in the community. We would love to offer many more programming for adults. So I teach typically one adult class per semester at Naropa University that's open to all adults, all ages in the community. If I would have more time, if we would have more resources, we would love to offer more for adults because we know adults need it the same way, you know. The reason is we just want to catch kids early, right? We want to save them from so many years of destruction. We want to turn lives around early on.
Thank you. Okay, our next questioner is John Sullivan.
Thank you, Gary. My question's for Dee and Kara and Holly. You mentioned that before Natural Highs, you were involved with peer groups that were leading you down the wrong path. And I wanted to know if you still interact with these peer groups today, and if yes, how do you approach this interaction? And if you don't interact, why not?
Great question.
Okay, I can start if no one minds. The friendships that I had at the time, I don't specifically interact with those certain people because there were just like interpersonal struggles as well. We just dissolved the friendship. But in general, I do interact with people who make quote unquote questionable choices, or specifically with drug use. Because at my last school, for example, New Vista, it's in Boulder, so everyone's smoking weed. And I have plenty of friends who do drugs and stuff like that. People, for the most part, are very respectful of my decisions. I find that I've been at parties where everyone is high or drunk and they ask, and like someone is trying to send a text to their mom and they're like, is anyone sober here? And everyone's like, no. And I'm like, oh, I'm sober. And I'll send the text for them. And they'll be like, oh my God, that's so cool that you're sober, Dee, because like I know you're part of Natural Highs and like I want to be like you one day, and just like stuff like that. Like I get that a lot. And I don't know, I think that because Natural Highs is so about substitution instead of just like taking something away and just like, okay, have fun with the withdrawals, is so important. For example, with herbalism specifically, like the way that we use herbs, like specifically passion flower for anxiety, or like reishi for more of a connection to the world and like feeling brighter and more awake. It's very, very, like that portion of it is just so insanely specific and so important. I've also definitely been at gatherings where people are smoking weed and I will just be like drinking mate. And everyone's pretty cool with it for the most part. And I even find that people who I would have never expected to like ever consider being sober just tell me that although they're not willing to make the switch, they find the fact that I'm doing that super inspiring.
Yeah, and like I can kind of bounce off that with my experience. I was like, I'm in college, I go to CU, so I was like I still am in a sorority, so it was a very big culture around like going out to parties, drinking, and it was my whole identity before getting sober, which was really hard when I first came into Natural Highs, like letting go of that past self. And I still have all my relationships, and my friends know that I love them, but I've noticed that the distance between us has just grown because I've grown, and like the things that I've learned through Natural Highs and like the things I've learned about myself just don't really correlate with some of the things that my friends are doing. So I've noticed that I can still love them from afar and like be a role model and give like positive influence to them, but I'm not necessarily spending all my time doing the same things that I used to be doing. And it's been really cool because a lot of my friends have been inspired to get sober because of the work that I've been doing. So 2 of my closest friends are completely sober, one of them for a month and the other one for like 3 or 4 now. which is really beautiful. And like, all we can really hope is, like, I can only control what I'm doing in my world, and I'm still a part. I still go to CU, like I still have all my friends, you know, like I don't want to isolate myself and be totally lonely, but I just show up as I am and show up as a role model and allow people to also do the same if that's something that they want to do for themselves.
Thank you, Ollie. Okay, so we have another question from Deborah Simmons. Deborah?
Hi. I am relating to you, Avani, and to you girls on so many levels. It's hard for me to know where to start or actually what not to say. I'm in recovery. My son went through 4 residential treatment programs for opiate addiction. I started the Reentry Initiative here in Boulder County to help women reenter from incarceration. And I understand the value of what you're doing. I'm so excited to hear from you and to learn about what you're doing. I think we have some amazing opportunities where our women who are living in our home in Longmont, who have long battled addiction and its ramifications and consequences, I think there could be some enormous potential here for us to be able to benefit our mutual communities. And I really look forward to contacting you after this meeting.
So I need to say something that just moved me so much. And, you know, oftentimes when people see our community work, and by the way, there was a question how many people we serve. We serve over 2,000 kids a year here in this area. And we also have pilot sites because people like Kara, we had a young person bring Natural Highs to Australia, and she worked there with Aboriginal youth. We're still connected with them. So we have pilot sites where young leaders then take Natural Highs and bring it to other places. It's also now being implemented in several schools in Denver, at the Colorado High School, and at GALS, who's the Girls Athletic Leadership School in Denver. So, you know, when people see our work in the community, sometimes they think, oh, you know, this is prevention. How would this work for people who are hardcore in addiction? And then I just smile. It's like, we don't separate people at all. We invite everybody on the whole spectrum. I tell you, we have people who have been through all these treatment centers and nothing has ever worked for them. And Natural Highs is the first approach that works for them because it is different. So I want to share with you. So I have been invited I've worked with the Boulder Probation Department for the last 12 years. And so I get invited to do one-time presentations, right? For drug court, for probation. And these clients, you know how these clients present sometimes initially, right? They've learned to put up the facade. They have learned to be very defensive. And literally it takes us one presentation to change that. I want to personally forward you an email that I got from a probation officer who speaks about what Natural Highs has done for her client. She couldn't believe it. Like, she had given up hope that anything would work for this client. And it took us one class to completely change the behavior of this client, because we approach people differently. We approach people as experts, as leaders, without any judgment. We say to everybody, you can teach something. So right now in the class, we have a woman on the team as a mentor who lost her children. Her children were taken away from her because of drug use. She was incarcerated. Now she's on the team, right? So you can imagine the other women come to class and they're like, Morgan, why are you on the team? Like, what does that mean? Well, she's a peer mentor. She is clean and sober. It changes everything in an instant, right?
Thank you. And I'm glad you guys are going to connect afterwards. But I'm afraid we've reached our time limit here. We have lots more questions, and I would encourage people, if they want, to stay on after we close the program, and Avani can stay on for a little bit and we can get some more of your questions answered.
I also want to say, right, my email is on the website, and it's naturalhighs.org with an S. There's another organization in California, without an S, naturalhigh.org. They named their program after us. So just know, get on the right website, naturalhighs.org. My email is right there. Please reach out. This is what we are about. We are about community. We're about connection. We invite every one of you to connect with us and take advantage of all the resources we're offering right now. We'd love for you to be part of our community. Please think about the vulnerable people in your lives. Please connect them with our resources. It's all about community. It's all about inspiration. And we would love to extend that to all of you.
Thank you so much, Avani. I want to first thank you and all of the peer mentors for being here today and being willing to present all that you have. It's been very inspirational. And I'd like to turn it over to Hans right now. So he has an announcement and we'll do our response.
Thanks, Gary. And I second my appreciation to certainly Avani and Dee and Holly and Kara for this great overview of this program. I think everyone can now see, why our Rotary Behavioral Wellness Committee is so supportive of this program, which identifies with our values in terms of Rotary and supporting our youth and developing their leadership skills. And basically, it just helps the overall health and safety of our community that we're very proud of. As to an announcement, many of you might recall that from previous presentations we've made that suicide is still the #1 cause of death for adolescents in our community, ages 15 to 24. It's a tragedy that we all understand is something that we'd like to do something about. And many of the club members already attended a suicide prevention class or QPR Question, Persuade, Refer program back in January and February. We had 65 club members. So I'm here to tell you again that on June 12th, right after our club meeting again, we're going to do a Zoom QPR class. And in the rib and on the announcements, there'll be a registration page so that everybody can sign up. And, of course, it's not just club members, family and friends. We just want to know that clearly this is something that's really important right now. I can give you a number that is just absolutely tragic and astounding, that in 2018, there were over 150,000 deaths of despair. And what I mean by deaths of despair, from suicide or drug overdoses. Can you imagine what that number is going to be now because of COVID-19? These are issues that we're facing, and I think that's why we're so supportive also of Natural Highs and the program they're going to do for our kids in the summer that Avani talked about. So if you have that date free, put a date hold on that on June 12th and register. And that way you can also participate, because every one of us needs to recognize those signals when there is suicidal ideation and refer people to resources and be there for them. So for Avani and for Dee and Kara and Holly, we really thank you for your work for our community and your program today. And in our appreciation of that program today, Rotary will donate 100 doses of polio vaccine, because that's part of our journey across this planet to eradicate polio from this earth. And you have been a big part of that contribution. So thank you again for your program today and the passion you have for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. John?
All right. Next up on today's agenda is our announcement video.
Stu and Jill Drury joined us on the trail this week, and here's what they have to say.
Welcome to Boulder Rotary, best place to be on a Friday afternoon in Boulder.
Yeah.
All right. What started as paper announcements on a table moved to the big screen in a PowerPoint. Then it was an MP4. But today, it is now the Brew.
Boulder Rotary Update.
Dun 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 dun.
BRC Peace Builders Committee is meeting Monday, May 25th from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Join us for a Zoom.
We've had 3 new members being inducted here on Zoom, which means we've got 3 new Red Badgers. I'd like to take this opportunity on the brew to introduce Susan Buchanan, Vipul Seth, and James Rolfs. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And now, Gene and Dick Bedell.
Rotarians in the news. Dick, your voice is so vibrant, it just is amazing. That Carol Riggs, the owner of Sturts Copeland, and a former Boulder Rotary Club president, is being inducted into, I wish there was a drum roll here, because this is really significant. Thank you, Daryl. Is being inducted into the Boulder County Hall of Fame is that Carol Riggs was the person who sponsored me as a member of Boulder Rotary Club. So I look at her with appreciation in more than one way. Jeannie and Jack Thompson, I'm glad that Jeannie is mentioned before Jack. We women have to stand up for our rights. Woo! Jeannie and Jack Thompson are recipients of a University Medal Regents Award for their service and contribution to the University of Colorado. So those are our Rotarians in the news for this week.
Woo! All right, well, good job. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks for thinking of us.
Hey, Charlotte Rome has a great volunteer project for a regular basis this summer, weeding and helping water school vegetable gardens in Louisville and Lafayette. It's a garden to table project, it's community service, and it follows the CDC guidelines for community gardens. Get a hold of Charlotte for more info.
The annual Ted Manning and Michael Weatherwax Memorial Paul Harris Fellow Match Opportunity is back on again. Michael Weatherwax is again matching your donations necessary to get you to your first or next Paul Harris Fellowship. Contact him immediately.
And remember, every Rotarian, every year. Rotary International in 2021 is going to get the knack. Holger Knack. He's the RI president. And guess what? Next week, May 29th, is going to be PE Sally Brown telling us what's in store for us in the coming Rotary year. Sally's also bringing a special guest.
T.A. Barron. He's a Boulderite, and he's also an inspirational writer, and you're going to love hearing him talk.
That's next week. Don't miss it. What's going to make my job easier? I have lots of photos of Sally Brown to use in the brew next year.
Great. Thank you, Daryl and Sally. All right, we've come to the audience participation portion of our program. So Fred Hull, if you could put this survey up, and it should take us under a minute to answer these questions. Ah, there we go. Of course, it's poll 051520, because we were going to do it last week. Okay, now go for it.
Awkward silence.
Okay, how we doing, Fred?
You can see at the top that we have 53
Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, I think we have a representative sample. 55, okay. Mhm.
Sean, do you think the people who didn't answer didn't realize they could just click on their screen?
Boy, I'd hate to ask them directly and embarrass them in front of the whole group, but it's possible. Or they're just away from their computer at this time.
They're cleaning out their own email boxes.
Yes, yeah, that's sort of.
That's another polling question.
Well, we've had well over 2/3 of the people respond, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with closing it now. Ding. Okay. And so here are the results of these questions in real time. This is faster than our elections. Okay. All right, the program committee is going to use this information for our future programs, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to answer these questions. Okay, so let's, I'm going to go back to Max McNutt. From Ohio. Let's see, where is he? There he is. Okay, Max, go ahead and start, and let's we're gonna listen. Wonderful. And again, that's Max McNutt joining us all the way from Ohio on this Memorial Day weekend. Yes, use your clap emoji. All right. It is my sense that we should stay on a little bit afterwards so we can continue to talk with Avani and Dee and Holly and Kara. So we will stay on, but I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting and tell everyone to go forth this Memorial Day weekend at a socially distant pace and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So we had a question from John and Lennicutke. Are you guys still here?
Yeah, Gary, I am. And Avani, I was just absolutely fascinated to hear about your program. I was not familiar with it. I myself am a recovering alcoholic. I have got a little over 14 years of sobriety since March 6th of 2006. And it's absolutely been an incredible life-changing experience. And for me, the question I had was, for me, part of my recovery path has been really a spiritual kind of experience. And I was just wondering, is one of the many questions I had, does your program involve any type of spirituality or spiritual? I mean, it sounds like a very scientific, this is what it's doing to our brain. And I was wondering how that spirituality is incorporated into the program.
That is a beautiful question, and I want everybody on the team to chime in on that. So this is very, very important to me, because I have seen that if people prescribe a particular recovery path, that sometimes it excludes people, right? And I'm sure you have seen that.
Right.
So what we try to do in Natural Highs, we try to open a space where people can have spiritual experiences without prescribing it. Right? So what we do is we hold philosophy circles, and that is the one that we want to invite you to be part of in the summer, either on Zoom or in a park with safe distance. Because what we have noticed when we do philosophy circles, so when we have conversations about existential topics, we can we have had people had very deep experiences, where it's almost like you provide a container, a space to ask very deep questions, and then people can find that spiritual content for themselves. We also do a lot of practices that really allow what people would call spiritual experiences. So for example, we have a huge Reiki energy program where people are learning how to do Reiki energy work, which is an incredible practice from Japan, and anybody can learn it, and usually it's very expensive. So it's typically, teens never have access to that. People who don't without money never have access to that. But it's another experience where people can have very profound spiritual experiences, but they're not, taught what to believe, but they can discover it for themselves. Okay. Because one thing we teach in Natural Highs is that drugs are copying neurotransmitters, right? So we have neurotransmitters in our body, in our brain, that are responsible for spiritual experiences. So for example, serotonin and DMT. And we actively do practices that release serotonin and DMT. So people in our program regularly have what I would call spiritual experiences, but I want other people on the team to chime in on that.
You go, Holly.
Okay. Yeah, I've had like amazing spiritual experiences, and I think what's really beautiful about the program is that, like Avani was saying, it doesn't force you to go any which way, but it gives you so many places, or so many potential places to experience spirituality. Like there's one experiment that we do, or practice that we do, where we sit in class and we sit across from someone we don't know, that we're not familiar with, and you just stare them in the eyes. And that's like such a vulnerable spiritual experience for me, and I know for so many others, because you're just sitting in your most vulnerable self, like, and it's like, it's so beautiful. And there are other ones, like I remember we did this one activity where you blindfold yourself and you run it down the hall, and like I had a beautiful experience, like spiritual experience with that as well. And I know other kids are experiencing that, but for some people it might look like this or that, but yeah, it's full of it. And trance dances, like I know Dee loves talking about them, so I'm going to pass that off over to her so she can speak more on that.
Okay, cool. I was going to speak about that. You know me so well. So like Holly was just referring to about that that activity that we provide where you put a blindfold on and you run, we have a similar experience to that where it's an entire event for one day, and it's called the Trance Dance. And both of those things correlate with releasing your own DMT, which is a very rare thing to do because it's like very much like a dreamy, like you get it when you die, you get it when you're born. And it's like one of like, because of that, it's like a very like sought after drug because it's such an intense and like profound experience in a way. So we like to be able to provide that for people in healthy, natural ways. And so one of that is just sensory, wow, why can't I, what is the word? Sensory?
Deprivation.
Yes, thank you. Sensory deprivation. So like with blindfolding yourself, and it's just like your brain basically just doesn't know what's going on and it like thinks you're dead, so it like releases DMT if you're moving while you're blindfolded. So a trance dance is super, super special because it's basically the gist of it is you're blindfolded and they put on like, Avani puts on like this like really like deep like bass heavy kind of like, depends, but like kind of like jungle music in a way, and your brain basically like takes you on this like spirit, mom.
It takes you on a spiritual journey. Are you ready, Dee?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so your brain's, it's kind of like a trip, and it's super, super cool. There's people facilitating there, and it's just like completely natural, completely healthy, and so like profound experiences. Like people like go on like these whole like journeys into like the future and like their subconscious, and it's just so profound. People are always like so amazed after their first time, and it gets better and different every single time you do it too. So yeah, it's just really crazy. And I would say for sure that one, I mean, maybe not to everyone, but I would say in the basis of it is very spiritual because it's such a, because it's like our variation of like spiritual, like indigenous rituals. Like usually when people do stuff like that, like trance dance, it's usually like a very profound spiritual or like religious or cultural experience. So.
Great, thank you.
We know that a lot of people use substances to have a spiritual experience. You know, this is a piece that is not talked about often because of stigma, but a lot of people try to expand their consciousness by using substances. So the intention is not wrong. You know, we teach that. There's nothing wrong about wanting to expand your consciousness, but we don't teach a lot of practices in our culture how you can do that without drugs. And we specialize in that. We do a lot around that. That's why we teach mindfulness practices. That's why we teach, like, how can you get with your own brain into a expanded state of experience so that you understand you don't need to do drugs for that. You can cultivate that inside of yourself as a skill that then you will always have with you. You know, and it's actually the opposite of drug use, because the more you stay clean, the more sensitive you get, the more intuitive you get. So we have kids who learn Reiki energy work and feel like they, you know, they can really feel the other person in a way that they couldn't even think was possible. But you can only do that when you're clean and sober, right? So it's like a very interesting approach that, again, is not going into a deficit, but allowing you, because you're clean and sober, you can do more, right? So that's our approach, how we teach.
Could I add something to that? I know we're spending a while on this question, but I don't know if most of you know about Naropa University, but it's kind of known for its integration of contemplative practices, meditation, and different types of spiritual enlightenment, kind of. And something that I'm seeing at Naropa very strongly is that a lot of students aren't practicing meditation, and they're actually, I feel like the spiritual practice at Naropa right now is marijuana. And that's how they're coming together, and that's how they're expanding their minds and different things like that. And I really think that, you know, there's so many things that can lead to addiction, but people who I have found in myself, I'm a really, really sensitive person, and I'm picking up on a lot of different people's like feelings, even when they're not saying them. And sometimes it's just so overwhelming that I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's even a more subtle aspect where it's not even just like trance dance or this or that, that's like very much kind of going into an altered state of consciousness, but just by being able to take care of your sensitivities in a very kind way, like learn these self-cares on a daily routine, has been a pretty fulfilling spiritual experience for me, because it's like taking care of my soul in like this nicer way rather than numbing it because it's being sensitive. Yeah.
So you see, John, we really liked your questions. That's totally up our alley. That's what we do all day long. So you would be very welcome in our circle.
I would absolutely love to join one of your philosophical circles discussions or whatever. I will get on your website. This has been just a mind-blowing experience for me just to hear you today. So thank you. Yes.
And we will be recruiting the fellow Rotarians for the philosophy circles, especially as we start supporting formally the program.
Yeah, please put John on the list, okay?
Okay, he will be. We usually make him the first person to ask a question too, because he always nails it, right? Let's see. Ed Golden, are you still on the call? I think you had a question.
And in the meantime, I just want to give a big shout out to Norma. You know, we would not be here today without Norma tracking us down. So I just want to say, Norma, you were the one making that connection and doing all this work in the community about, you know, finding out about us, seeing what we're doing. So I just want to say thank you so much, because this has been such a beautiful connection of communities. And so I just want to appreciate that you did that for us and for Rotary.
You're totally welcome. We all think so highly of you and everything that you're doing. We hope that this become a partnership between Natural Highs and our club on an ongoing basis every year. So fingers crossed we can find lots of ways to help you.
And I just want to say this is something that not a lot of people know. So there was an interesting researcher in Denver who did a very in-depth research around young people and what young people experience in the world right now. His name is Chip Clark, and he did a lot of in-depth interviews with kids, teens, and he found out that teens actually want to be connected to people of different generations, that they actually feel abandoned by adults, that it's not them that doesn't want to have the connection, right? And we have heard this from our kids many times, that kids feel abandoned by adults and want to be connected with adults. And that's why we started the intergenerational philosophy circles, because they're incredible. And kids have said they have a yearning for conversation with adults that is not role driven. You know, they said the only way adults relate to us is through their role, is as a parent, as a teacher, as a therapist, but nobody in another generation relates to them as a human being, and they would really like that conversation. And so that's why we're holding them, and they're incredibly profound. So just know that young people want that conversation, and they're looking for it. So that's why we do that.
Thanks so much, Avani. I think unless there's any further questions, we can just once again thank you and the pyramid. Yeah.
I'd like to ask Avani about being a physician. Is anybody looking at the effects of this program on brain chemistry using MRIs to see what the processes that you are using are doing? Have you partnered with anybody who's doing any of that kind of look at the effects of your program?
Oh my God, I would go to the end of the world to find somebody to do that for us, because I can tell you, when we do the trance dance, there is incredible things happening. And if anybody could do that for us, I would be more than beside myself happy. So we do evaluations of our program, right? So we do anonymous evaluations, and they're phenomenal. So for the last 12 years, after every 10-week workshop, we ask, you know, people to give us feedback, and it is always over 80% of all participants say that going through Natural Highs, either they decrease their use of drugs and alcohol, or they quit altogether. So that's over 80, typically over 85% of all participants. That's incredible, right? That is beyond what any other prevention program or program can do. Our problem is we are so tiny, we are so small, we don't have a budget to do this kind of like research work. So if you or anybody has a connection, that's what we want. Like, we want to show the world of how easy it is to help people change patterns, that it's not that hard, you know. And like I said, I want to forward you this email that I got just from a probation officer who could see this incredible change in her client that she didn't even think was possible. So if anybody can help us connect to any kind of research or evaluation, that's what we need, because we want to show people that there's different than the old traditional approaches, that we do something different and that it could be effective for a lot of people.
Avani, Peter is leaving us. He's moving to the Northwest, unfortunately, but I'll be delighted to be able to help facilitate that kind of a connection. And so once again, thank you. Oh, there was one question that I'll just pose that was on the question list. What is the ratio of male to female participants? Because
that's a great question. So it changes, right? We had years where we would go into a middle school and there were only girls on the team, and then kids would be like, is this a girls program? We're like, no, oh no. So some years we're very even. We have now usually more than half of our kids identify as not straight. Or as, about a third of our kids identify as non-binary. So we have a mix of genders in our program, and we welcome people from all kinds of backgrounds and genders.
that's very informative. Thank you. Okay, well, once again, thank you everybody for their participation, and including Rotarians and our esteemed guests. And we look forward to working with you on a continual basis this summer and maybe beyond.
I'm putting my email into the chat, right? So anybody is welcome. If questions come later, anybody is welcome to contact me. I would love to be in touch with you all.
Thank you so much.